Hi, and welcome to Across the Desk. Well, here we are, episode 10, season 9, halfway through the season, and I haven't done one show on Ryan Walters. Now, makes sense. The beginning of every year is when all the crazy bills come out from the crazy legislators, and I have to do shows about them. And boy, did I not do plenty on Dusty Devers and Jim Olson and Nathan Dahm, and hopefully made some people aware of the craziness that goes on down there. Thankfully, none of Dusty Devers' bills even made it out of the committee, which is why I threw a fit, which makes for a great show that we had last week. But, yes, gonna focus on Ryan Walters today because an interesting thing happened. Horrible polling numbers came out, and a bit of a contrast with a buddy of mine who's doing good things for Oklahoma. So, in the last week or so, Ryan Walters was in the news a bit, like he always tries to be. Of course, now he's paid nearly $70,000 of taxpayer money to get in front of national media. So, it makes sense that he'd want to be out there. But there's something that happened that made it not in a good way. See, a polling place, 538, very reputable polling company, did a poll on Ryan Walters, his favorability, his likability, what people think, and they only polled Republicans. Well, they polled other people, but the interesting thing was how the Republicans polled, and that's what I wanted to go through here today. So here we got some polling data for you. Out of Republicans, when it comes to Ryan Walters, 72% of Republicans in Oklahoma have a negative opinion of Ryan Walters. Now that can't be any good, especially when these are Republicans we're talking about. He has a 58% unfavorability rating with Republicans in Oklahoma. 58%. Nearly two-thirds of Republicans see him unfavorably. And it makes sense. It makes sense. And just when you look at how he is. He's out there. He's trying to conduct a war. He's very divisive. He's very untransparent. Some of the ugliness that his staff does, like Dan Isett and Matt Langston, the childish pettiness that they do, like saying things they do about the media or certain people or even certain legislatures or the attorney general or anything else, and the way they say it. It's petty and it's childish, it's immature. It's turning a lot of people off. Mostly, though, the interesting thing was, it's women and young people that are turned off the most. Now, if you're an older person who does not have kids in school, well, you like Ryan Walters. Those younger than 40 who have kids, mostly in school, and women, they really aren't that big on Ryan Walters from what the polling shows. This is really bad for Ryan Walters. It means he could possibly be primaried and lose his office, which would be a good thing. It'd be an improvement. It really would. And that's where we're at in the state of Oklahoma anyway. Because when it comes to Democrats, they don't hold any of the state offices. Statewide offices, a Democrat doesn't hold any of them. And that's a failure of the state party, Democrat Party, to actually do anything, provide some leadership, vet people or something. I don't know what's going on there. But to have zero in your state wide offices is really unusual. It means that there's something deeper going on there. But getting back to this polling data that was taken. So yeah, 538 did some polling. And the Republican data is the most concerning that just came out. Because whenever they talked about Ryan Walters, hey, what do you think about it? Give us some phrases, give us some words that describe him. Some of the biggest ones was that he's abrasive, that he's crass. He comes off as a dictator. The other thing that I found really interesting was that out of Republicans, a major majority, two-thirds, thought that he wasn't respectful to teachers and didn't listen to them, refused to listen to them, and absolutely wasn't going to listen to them. That's how they felt about it. He's a go-it-alone guy. I want to do it this way. I got this culture war I'm fighting, and teachers that are in my way, they better get out of it because he's not going to play around. That's how he comes off. Well, and in some respects, where the Republican Party was, that's kind of how they are. If you look at Margie Green and people like Jim Jordan and how they are. they don't have a high favorability either. So I'm not sure what Ryan Walters is thinking or who he's listening to tell him that this is the way to go. I feel it's the people like Matt Langston and the Dan Isets out there who are from Texas, still live in Texas, and have no skin in Oklahoma's game. So that's what we have. And that's one of the most interesting things that really turn people off too, is you got these guys and a gal that aren't from Oklahoma, don't live in Oklahoma, but you're paying them Oklahoma taxpayer dollars to help run our education system, and they have zero skin in our game. They don't even live here. They don't. Whenever you look at Matt Langston, his location data always says he's in Austin, Texas, and you never see him at anything. Dan Iset shows up for the board meetings, but he actually has an address that says he's in North Texas. So who knows? These guys aren't honest. Their transparency level is some of the lowest of anywhere you've seen. And they're always at odds with everybody. And even Republicans, even their own Republican colleagues, they're at war with. And that's just where Ryan Walters is on a lot of this stuff. Now, this all culminates into what happened last week. So the state board meeting once a month happened on Thursday. So what do? The day before, people will line up, and they've been doing this for months, more than a year now. You go there to speak on a public meeting that they're allowed to redress their government. This is First Amendment stuff. So stuff that they've been doing for over a year, all of a sudden, they confiscated everybody's chairs that were there, and they locked the doors and put out a sign saying, hey, when it comes to state parks, the rule is they close at 11 p.m. and don't open again till 6 a.m. You can't be here. It's trespassing. Well, the weird deal is the Capitol grounds is really not a state park. Now, there are state park features on the Capitol grounds, but we're talking about a building, the Hodge building. It's not part of a state park. So they're just trying to pull anything out so that they can kind of throw a monkey in the wrench and keep people that they don't like from speaking. It kind of works. It did. But not real well because, one, people still showed up. They still showed up early the day before. They stayed all night, and no one kicked them out. No one did, but it was just kind of wild because what poor optics. I mean, poor optics, because the media was on this, and what you have doors that were tied shut with electrical cords. So one thing that this raised was the immediate question, hey, how can this be to fire code to tie up a door like that? They had zip tie looking thing on there. Extension cord tied up. They even took down a memorial to Cathy Cummings, Sean Cummings' wife, that was put up there, and took it down too. Because, Dan Iset, he's a bastard like that. You see, he thinks he's a tough guy, but he's really not. He does all this stuff behind closed doors and with security so that, he doesn't get his butt whooped. Because that's what a wimp from Texas is going to do. Just what's going to happen. And hey, you know what? He doesn't have to worry. He can go back home to Texas and be just fine. He's not even from Oklahoma. He doesn't pay taxes here or anything. He just takes our taxpayer money. Pretty much like Ryan Walters is doing. Now, one of the last things I want to go over is the nifty contrast. So I have a really good friend of mine, Sean Cummings. We do a podcast together, The Will Rogers Experiment. We do that on Tuesdays, drop it on iHeartRadio and Spotify on Wednesdays, and you can get it on Sean Cummings' Facebook feed where we do the live video. And anyway, he's got something going on. See, his wife, Cathy, passed away from cancer. So they set up a GoFundMe because she didn't want flowers. Hey, don't spend a bunch of money on flowers for me. I'm dying. Put that in a fund and pay off school lunch debt. So that's what happened. Sean Cummings, through his wife's memorial, has raised nearly $70,000. Wow, you know what? That's the amount of money Ryan Walters has spent on his self-promotion, PR, trying to pay to get him on Fox News, because you have to pay to get on there, I guess. And hiring consultants and everybody else to get him on these TV stations. And the weird deal is, oh, this is about hiring teachers and getting them here. But really, whenever they send out their nice little sales pitch on getting Ryan Walters on their show, it was like, he can talk about immigration. There was really nothing on there about him talking about this state of Oklahoma education. It was the furthest thing from it. We're at the bottom of the list. Why would you want to talk about that? But there's the contrast, right? So Ryan Walters spends $70,000 of our taxpayer money to promote himself, while Sean Cummings raises $70,000 in the name of his wife and gives it away to kids who are in lunch debt, mostly seniors, because here you go, in Oklahoma, if you have lunch debt and you're a senior, they will hold on to your transcript, and you may not get to go to college until you pay that off. So you're mostly focused on paying off the lunch debt to seniors so they can go on with any kind of careers, tech, college, wherever they want to go. So they don't have to worry about that. And he's been going all over the state doing that. What a contrast. And here's the other contrast I'd like to point out too. Not only is Ryan Walters spending $70,000 so he can get on national TV. If you didn't notice, Sean Cummings was on national TV. And the national TV stations came to Sean. He didn't have to pay them to get on their national TV show. They came to him, seeking him out to put him on their national TV show, talking about the great things he's doing for kids in Oklahoma when it comes to paying off their lunch debt. And man, that is a contrast, a big contrast, huge contrast. Sean's not spending it on himself. He's spending it on kids for their lunches, doing something good for the kids of Oklahoma, where our superintendent of education is taking our taxpayer money intended for kids' education and spending it fully on himself for national media attention. That's the big contrast right there. The contrast between Ryan Walters and Sean Cummings, and it reflects in his polling numbers as we've discussed throughout this show. Well, that's the show for this week. Going back to Ryan Walters and the fumbles and the follies of him in his office and just how bad he's running things over there. Anyway, like always, we will see you guys next week.